She was born of steel and ambition, launched in 1958 into the industrial heart of the Great Lakes. At 729 feet, the Edmund Fitzgerald was the largest ship on the lakes, a record setter christened before a crowd that cheered her sheer size. Sailors called her the pride of the American side. For 17 seasons, she carried iron ore across inland seas most of the world never thinks about. Her route was a working man's rhythm, the taconite mines of Minnesota to the mills of Detroit and beyond. Season after season, she hauled cargo that would become cars, bridges, and skyscrapers. Her crew knew her moods, her groans, the way she rode the swells. She was fast, she was famous, and among freighters she was almost a celebrity. But the Great Lakes are not gentle. They are vast enough to make their own weather, cold enough to swallow a man in minutes. November is their cruelest month, when Arctic air collides with the last warmth of autumn and the storms turn savage. Sailors have a name for these tempests, the Witch of November. On November 9, 1975, the Fitzgerald loaded 26,000 tons of taconite pellets at Superior, Wisconsin. At her helm was Captain Ernest McSorley, a veteran of 44 years at sea, well-respected and near retirement. 28 other men made up his crew: cooks, deckhands, engineers, watchmen. They set out under an ordinary sky, bound for a mill near Detroit. Not far off, another freighter followed a similar course, the Arthur M. Anderson, captained by Jesse Cooper. The two ships stayed in radio contact as they crossed Lake Superior. It was a companionship of voices over open water, a habit born of respect for the lake's dangers. That night, that companionship would become a lifeline of memory. The forecast worsened by the hour. What began as a gale bloomed into a full storm, with winds screaming over 50 knots and waves building past 25 feet. Snow reduced visibility to nothing. The two captains altered course, seeking the shelter of the Canadian shore, hugging the coast to escape the worst of it. By late afternoon, McSorley radioed that the Fitzgerald was taking on water. She had lost 2 vent covers and a section of railing, and her radar had failed. "I have a bad list," he reported, his voice steady despite the words. He asked the Anderson to keep watch and help guide him in. Still, he showed no panic, only the calm of a man who had weathered many storms. The seas grew mountainous. Witnesses on the Ensign later described rogue waves so large they buried the deck. 2 of them, some believe, rolled up from behind and struck the Fitzgerald in succession, pressing her bow down into water she could not climb out of. Whatever happened, it happened fast. At around 7:10 p.m., the Anderson called the Fitzgerald once more, asking how she was making out. McSorley's reply was almost casual: "We are holding our own." They were the last words anyone would ever hear from the ship or her crew. Minutes later, her lights vanished from the radar and the horizon alike. The Anderson's crew stared into the snowblind dark, calling again and again into a radio that only hissed back. No mayday had come. No flare, no lifeboat, no cry. In water just above freezing, the entire crew of 29 was gone before the storm even knew it had taken them. When the surface was finally searched, the lake gave up almost nothing: a few battered lifeboats, some debris, and oil slicks spreading on the swells. The Fitzgerald herself lay 530 feet down, broken into 2 great pieces on the bottom of Lake Superior. No bodies were ever recovered. The lake, as the old saying goes, does not give up her dead. The wreck haunted the region, but it might have faded into a footnote of maritime history. Then a Canadian folk singer named Gudun Lightfoot read a magazine account of the disaster. Something in the names, the numbers, the sheer sorrow of it took hold of him. He sat down and began to write. Released in 1976, the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald was unlike anything on the radio: 6 minutes long, mournful, almost hymn-like. Lightfoot's aching voice carried the story like a ballad from another century. Improbably, it climbed to number 2 on the charts, a song about a doomed ore freighter beloved by millions. The song did what no headline could. It gave the 29 men a place in the collective memory. Families found in it a memorial that would outlast granite. In Detroit, the bell of a mariner's church rang out for the crew, a ritual the song helped enshrine. Grief became music, and music became remembrance. Today the Edmund Fitzgerald rests where she fell, her recovered bell rung each November in solemn tribute. The theories about her sinking still stir debate, but the mystery only deepens the legend. A steel giant, 29 souls, and a storm on an inland sea, and a song, drifting still, that will not let them be forgotten.